I once heard it, I think maybe I read it somewhere, that when we hear the words of Jesus say, "Follow me," the context of that is a bit like, perhaps, it can be seen as someone saying, "Can you come and help me out?" A bit like, we might be stuck on the road and we're waving to someone to help change our tyre, or the car's broken down and, you're calling up someone to help. "Follow me, come and help me out." It's that kind of ring to it. In the day of Jesus, it was a very common phrase that I need a bit of a hand here, I need a bit of assistance. Come on, come follow me. And so that's why we hear this immediate response. This poor fellow, Peter and John, Peter and, what's his brother's name? Andrew. Peter and Andrew say, we better go and help this fellow out. Maybe he's got a flat tyre or a broken boat or something like that. Little did they realise that to follow me means give me the rest of your life, as we see as the Gospels go on. So we know that Jesus, once upon a time, there's one that wants to follow me. Jesus, once upon a time, he said, "I am the light of the world, and anyone who wants to follow me will not live in darkness." So he really wants to follow me. Live in the light, you will not follow me. No one can walk in darkness. And so we have these words Jesus recorded in the Gospels from Matthew's Gospel. So we have to realise too, Matthew was a great scribe. He was very versed in scriptures, like some of us might be. We know our Bible back to front. Well, Matthew was a bit like that. And his audience, his congregation he wrote for, was a Jewish people. So he was very, very keen on making sure that the scriptures would come out and make sense in the light of Jesus, the Messiah. So often you'll see in Matthew's Gospel many scriptures, and Matthew will say, "This was to fulfill blah, blah, blah." So we have a very beautiful case in today's readings, where the first reading has been transported into the life of Jesus, hasn't it? We heard in the first reading about a light that has shone in these particular countries or towns called Zebulun and Naphtali. Now, Zebulun and Naphtali, they were two of the 12 sons of Jacob. So Jacob had 12 sons, and they were made into 12 tribes of Israel. Israel was split into two kingdoms, the north and the south, Israel and Judah. And poor old Zebulun and Naphtali were hit pretty hard with the big bad bully Assyrians. When they came around in the 8th century, they ransacked Jerusalem, ransacked many countries, and poor Zebulun and Naphtali were hard hit. They were the most under the oppressive regime, and they were very much under foreign power. So when Isaiah, the great prophet, says, "Zebulun and Naphtali, it's okay, yes, you've been hit hard, but there will be a light." And of course, Matthew borrows that same word and says, "A light has shone," and we know who that is. We give him a name. His name is Jesus. In fact, those who went to midnight mass would maybe remember the first reading that was given to us for our first reading there. So Jesus, the light of the world, calls others out of darkness. The very first thing he says in following him is to repent. So we see this really actually in the actions of Peter and James and John and Andrew. Two things are noticeable in the gospel there. When Jesus calls Peter and Andrew, they're about to cast their net into the lake. Well, they leave it immediately and go and help him change the tyre. No. Fix up the boat. No. Follow him, which can also mean imitate me. So when he's saying this time around, follow me, come and help me live my life, and to let go of those things that are most precious. And that they did. So maybe it's a call for us. Jesus is calling all of us to follow him, and maybe there are some things that we're attached to. Perhaps we find our security in our worldliness, or our livelihood, or our employment, or our car, or our house, or whatever we have. Same as for Peter and John, they had to let go of that net and follow Jesus. So what's the net that's tying you up? What's the thing that you're kind of so caught up with, and it becomes so distracting that you forget Jesus, or you forget the whole thing about following him? So when Jesus says to follow him, it's a priority. It's a command, not a command, it's an invitation. And to hear that invitation, we have to let go of a few things. In the second scene, if you like, Jesus goes and calls the other men, and they do exactly the same thing. They leave their nets behind, but something else they leave behind. They leave their father behind. And so maybe, they were attached to family and to relationships, and maybe there was a bit of tension that they had to let go of. And again, Jesus speaks out to us, follow me, and by the way, leave your family to me. Maybe in your life, in my life at the moment, there's a relationship at home that's a bit tense. Maybe there's a relationship I'm too dependent upon. Maybe my mother, my father, my siblings, or whoever, my children. There is so much that we can get caught up in a relationship. And these are good things. Relationships are good things. We need to live. Thank God for rallies. We need to, work and things like that. Thank God for those nets. But what it is, when we get caught up in it, when it becomes such a resistance or a blockage to be able to follow Jesus. So the call upon our hearts today is to repent of the things I've made a God, or things I've idolised, or things I've held on to. We have to cast them away, or the relationship we have to give to God for God to bless and to heal. Let's heed that call today of Jesus to follow him, to imitate him. The disciples once was said, the disciple collects the dust of the master's feet. So imagine Jesus walking along the dusty road. That's how intimate the disciples were. They were collecting the dust off the master's feet. That's to imitate Jesus, to take upon ourselves himself. And we take it upon ourselves himself in communion, don't we? That when we receive communion today, we are, as Teresa of Avila once said, we are his hands. Now we're going to be his feet. We're going to be his eyes to look with compassion out onto the world. So let's heed the call, follow me. Let's repent of those things that we get kind of tied up with, caught up in the net, and follow the Lord, imitating him in his virtues of peace, love, and everything else he has to offer us.